Good day, traders. How was your weekend? Hope you spent your weekend well. Hope you're able to learn something new and hope you back tested because that's very important. I'm sorry that this video is just coming now. It's as a result of the fact that my system had some technical issues. But all glory to God, I've been able to fix the issue myself. Okay, let's start our analysis for the week. We're going to be starting with the Euro index, and we can see that we are bullish on the Euro index, and we are still expecting retracement back to this particular demand zone. Though price may not get there before shooting to the upside and breaking this structural point. So let's have that in mind. But like I always say, the weekly is a very long term. So let's not be in haste to achieve our weekly goal. Now let's see what we have for the daily. What can we see for the daily? Now if you look very well on the daily, we've seen that this higher high, higher low, higher high, and this particular place has formed the lower low, lower high, lower low. So this is the next lower high, and we expect price to take this particular part before we see another further drop, maybe to take out this down part. But let's see what we have for the FAR time frame. Let's see what we have. Now, if you look at the FAR time frame, what can we see? Now, if you look at the FAR time frame, you see that price has been making some series of upward movement, though at some point in time, price broke to the downside, coming to test this demand zone. So practically, I'm expecting one of these two, the price would go up, then fall back to this particular zone. Now, if this doesn't happen, we should be expecting that price will first fall down either to this zone or this zone, then move to the upside. So something like this, or something like this. First is this, and the second is something to this zone. Then we can see another movement to the upside. Any of them is possible. It's either we come down first to test this demand zone also before moving upwards, or we come upwards to test the supply zone and we move downwards. But when you monitor price action on lower time frame, you'll be able to decide what price is doing. So that is what we have for Euro. But before we leave our charts, let's see what the big boys are doing about Euro. Now, if we look at what the big boys are doing for Euro, they close more long and they open more short. These are the longs that are closed. These are the shorts that are open. They open 10K longs. So what does that mean? Now that means that there's every possibility that we're coming down, but we may get to this point first to trap some traders here before going down, or we may come here to trap some traders down before going up, then coming lower. One of these will happen. Now that's my index, that's my analysis for Euro. Now let's move to the next pair. The next pair we'll talk about is the dollar. Now let's quickly start from the weekly time frame. What can we say on the weekly time frame? Talking about the dollar. Now let's not forget that the dollar has been on a downtrend for some time now. Lower low, lower high, and they formed equal low, but breaking this point to the upside. Now, personally, I would like to see some movement to this particular part, or this particular supply zone. I would like to see a movement towards that part, that supply zone. But note, price will not just go to the upside. So let's see what our daily is doing. Now, if you look at the daily carefully, we've been able to uh, get a upward movement, or we've successfully retraced back to this demand zone that I spoke about in some weeks. You can check my previous videos. Now, having seen that, the next thing we can see now, we are seeing that there's an upward movement. Like I said, I would love a situation whereby price will either come to this particular zone, this supply zone, before maybe we see another downward movement. So we've successfully retraced back to the demand zone. So we should expect upward movement from the dollar. So we should expect some upward movement from the dollar. Now, if we will not see an upward movement because we don't own the market, so let us not think that everything we see will come to pass in the market. If we don't see an upward movement, then we are likely to see a movement back to this block. Then, afterwards, we will expect price to fly to the upside. Now, one of these two scenarios is bound to happen, but you need to look at price on your lower time frame. Now let's see what the 4 hour is talking about before we move to another currency index. Let's see what the 4 hour is offering us. Now if you look carefully at the 4 hour time frame, we can still minimize our supply zone still stands. So we can see that the 4 hour is possible that the 4 hour can make a lower high. Since we've already made a lower low here, it's possible the 4 hour can make a lower high to this particular zone. To this particular zone, supply zone, then coming down. But if this supply zone will get broken, then we should be able to see price going towards this weekly supply zone. Now let us quickly look at what the big boys are doing to the dollar pair, because we can only see their footprint in the market. We cannot decide what they will do. Okay, now looking at this, they've decided to close 709 long positions and close 1k plus short positions. Now that means they are closing more of shorts than longs. So we've been coming down. So when you start seeing some closing of short positions, then we should expect some movement to the upside. We should expect some movement to the upside when you see such actions happening in the market. So that's why I still think that we can see the movement of the dollar to this point. Then from here, we can decide what next will happen. Now let's move to the next currency. The next currency we're going to be talking about is GBP. So let's quickly move to GBP. On the weekly time frame, what can we see? Now we'll still notice that this is the higher high, higher low. So we are expecting to create higher high. Then if possible, while we create higher high, we can take liquidity from all this particular zone here, whereby price has not touched for a while. So we may expect to take liquidity there to form our higher high. So what else do we expect? Now let's go to the daily. Now on the daily, we'll notice that price is coming towards this demand zone. And if you look at the way price has been falling, price is falling gradually. So that means that price is retracing. So it's possible we can get to this demand zone before we see we may see price do this before we see any movement to the upside, breaking bounds and forming another structure there. So let's go to the 4-hour time frame. What can we see on the 4-hour time frame? Okay, let's ignore the other drawings we've seen. Now, if you look at the 4-hour time frame carefully, you will see that the price has been falling successfully. It's been falling successfully, falling. Now, we expect price to fall to form the lower low. Expect price to form the lower low. But why do I think that is going to happen? Why? Now, let's look at what the big boys are doing for the GBP. Now, they closed more of long. They closed, more of short. But long positions, 2,000 plus has been closed. And short position, 4,000 plus has been closed. So that means that they are reducing the momentum at which price is falling. So we should expect that price can gradually fall to our demand zone before another movement to the upside. Now let's quickly check the CHF. Now what's the CHF doing? On the weekly time frame, what can we see? Now we can see that we just bounced off this demand zone on the weekly time frame. We just bounced off this demand zone. So that's higher high, impulse and your correction. Then we move to the daily. What can we see on the daily? Now we can see that the daily is making a series of higher high and higher low, but there is a supply zone sitting here which price had already tapped. Now, if price will break this demand zone here, then we should expect this place to hold before we see another movement to the upside, because price is already sitting on this demand zone and we cannot predict what will happen. We only react to what is going to happen in the market. Now let's quickly look at what the 4-hour is saying. Now if you look at the way the 4-hour has been falling, the 4-hour has been falling gradually. It's not falling with long candles compared to these. So it's been falling gradually. So I won't be surprised if price will successfully get to this demand zone, move up to the upside, maybe coming to this particular supply zone before falling, or going upwards to break our previous structure. But let's quickly see what they are doing on the CHF. Please remember that when I say they, I'm talking about the big boys. Now, if you look at the banks, they are closing more of long on CHF. So what does that mean? Now, if they are closing more of longs on the CHF and also closing short, then we should expect that price can gradually get to this place before moving to the upside. Now, let's quickly check JPY. For the weekly time frame, what can we see? Okay. Okay. Now, what can we see on the weekly time frame? What can we see on the weekly time frame? Let me quickly remove the drawings so that we don't get confused. Now, on the weekly time frame, we can see that this is a lower low, lower high, lower low, and price just broke to the upside on the weekly time frame. Now, on the daily time frame, what do we expect price to do? Now, price is sitting at a very important demand zone, which is here, but though price did weak this particular place, that was last week. So what do we expect? We may expect price to move to the upside before coming to this place. Now, please note that these targets are long-term targets. They are not targets that you can just get there within one day. They are long-term targets. So we expect the price to move to the upside, or we expect price to fall deeply to this particular demand zone, then move up. One of the two is bound to happen. Let's check the what's it called? The 4-hour time frame, because this is the daily. Now, what can we see on the 4-hour time frame? Now, if you look at the 4-hour time frame, we can also see that supply is sitting here. Like I said, supply is sitting here. But if you were to look from the daily, you may be seeing this, the demand here. Sorry, demand is sitting here, not supply. Demand is sitting here. But if you look at daily, you may be seeing that the demand is from this place. So what do we expect? Now, it is possible that price can still come down before flying to the upside, or we can just see a direct movement to the upside from here. Now, let's quickly check what they are doing for the JPY. Now, if you look at the banks have opened more of long positions and few of short positions. So what does that mean? That means that there's every possibility that we can see price coming a little bit downwards before moving to the upside. Now, this is very, very, very possible. Now, let's see what we can get for the other pairs. Now, for the other pairs which we're going to be looking at is the CAD. Okay, now what do we have on the CAD? Looking at the CAD for daily, let's start with the weekly. So we might have missed some things in the course of our analysis. Okay, what can we see here? Now, we can see that price just broke this supply zone and respecting this demand zone. Now, we should expect a movement of price to the upside, maybe coming to this block. Let's go to the daily. Now, on the daily, you will see that price has perfectly retraced back to this demand zone. So, the next thing we expect price to do is either to come downwards to take more liquidity before moving to the upside. That is what we expect. Then we may see a reaction from this particular block, this demand zone. So let's move to the 4-hour time frame. Now, what can we see on 4-hour time frame? On 4-hour time frame, we're making a series of lower low, lower highs. But at this point, we can see that we made equal highs, relatively equal highs. So I might be expecting price to come downwards a little bit before a movement to the upside, or I will expect price to come upwards to take this particular zone off before coming downwards. But let's see what the banks are doing for the CAD. Okay, for the CAD, they are closing more longs and opening more shorts. So now there is a possibility that we will move up first before moving to the downside. There's a possibility that that will happen. Now let's look at the last, second to the last pair, which is the Australian dollar. On the weekly for the Australian dollar, what can we see? Now the Australian dollar has respected this demand zone and we are seeing the movement to the upside. Then, if you come to the daily, we can see that it has broken the previous lower high, forming this lower low, but now it has formed a lower high. What can we expect? Now, we expect that price should reject on this supply zone or this supply zone. Afterwards, we'll see price falling to the downside or something like this, or we can break this place, then still retrace before a continuous movement to the upside. But let's look at 4 hour. What's the 4 hour telling us? Now, on the 4 hour, what can we see? Price have been making a series of lower high, lower low. Higher high, higher low, higher high. So what do we expect? We should expect that price might come to this block first before moving to the upside. But if this part is respected, then I'll be expecting that price should retrace to either this place or this place, one of these demand zones here, before we move to the upside. Then if you look at what the banks are doing for the odd, which is the Australian dollar, they are closing more of longs than they are closing short. So that means that it is possible we expect that price will surely come downwards before we continue the movement to the upside. Now the last pair, which is the NZD, that's the last pair for today. What can we see? Now let's go to the weekly time frame. Let's go to the weekly time frame. That is going to give us a broader picture of what we are doing. Now, consider we've made impulse correction and we are expecting that price will eventually come to this demand zone, but that is a long-term target. Afterwards, going to the weekly, what do we see? Okay, on the daily, what do we see? Now on the daily, we can see that we're making lower low, lower high, but we've come back to this structural point, supply zone. So I will not be surprised to see either this place taking off or this particular block, which is a supply zone, taking off, then a movement to the downside. Either we have from here, we move to the downside, or we have here, then move to the downside. I will not be surprised in seeing this. Now, let's quickly check what we have for the 4-hour time frame. Now, for the 4-hour time frame, what can we see? What can we see? My internet is a little bit slow, so kindly pardon me. It's because it's been cloudy all day long right here. Okay, it's up. Now, on the 4-hour time frame, we can see that price has just been moving gradually. So I will not be shocked to see price coming to a particular demand zone like this, or another demand zone which we have here. But let's not forget our higher time frame target. Our higher time frame target that I spoke about before getting to the daily, before getting to the 4-hour time frame. So I won't be surprised if price is going to reject from here, or if price is going to reject from here. But coming towards this end and coming towards this end. But before we go, let's see what NZD is like when it comes to the bank's perspective. Now you can see that they are opening more of short positions than they are opening long positions. So like I said, I won't be surprised to see price from this upside coming downwards or coming towards this place. I won't be surprised. Now, these are the analysis for the index of the major pairs that we have in the market. Now, with this, you'll be able to know the direction of what you're doing. Maybe you're going to be buying or selling. If you enjoyed this video, kindly share with your friends and also subscribe to our YouTube button, our YouTube channel. Click the subscribe button so that when I release new videos, you can always be one of the first to get notified. If you enjoyed this video, kindly click a like button. Thank you. I remain my humble self. See you next week.